One day after losing out on Kyle Tucker, this podcast is back in action because the Mets won big in some sense by landing Bo Bichette. 3 years, $126 million. We are back at it again. This is the Why Am I a Mets Fan podcast. That's Ashley Munskowski. I'm Samantha Crossan, and we are two Syracuse-based sports reporters. I want everyone to know that this is Ashley's second off day, and it's also the second time in that amount of days that she is back on this podcast. Good for you. Steel
Thanks.
clap for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Seal clap. Yeah, I'm back in my fig plant at my house. Yes, life of a sports reporter, because that's what we do in our normal jobs, in Syracuse, New York, is that, off days are a little funky during the week. My two off days of this week happen to be Thursday and Friday, which is the day that the Mets decided to explode the baseball world. So it's been a lot, but here we are. We have to talk about it because the Mets got Bo Bichette. The Mets, Steve Cohen was pissed off last night. I think the Dodgers pulled a fast one on Uncle Stevie, and Uncle Stevie said, "You know what? I have something else up my sleeve, and it's Bo Bichette."
Steve Cohen took that personally.
He
He
did.
really did. And that's good. It's a good thing to be angry because clearly it resulted in something great in a way. Um, this deal does not include any deferred money, giving the contract a straight average annual value of $42 million. It also gives the Mets a piece that they really needed, at least in some regard. I think that you and I probably could both, or maybe you won't agree with this, but I will say, I think that when you look at a guy like Bichette compared to a guy like Tucker, in a few ways, Tucker seemed like he would have been a better fit for this organization at the time and place that they are in. However, nobody is upset with this being a done deal.
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction was surprised. So I mentioned like the crazy schedule the past couple days. I had to get up early for something today, so I was taking a nap today, and Bo Bichette decided to explode. I woke up, my phone was like ballistic with Bo Bichette notifications. And I was a little shocked because we've been saying kind of for months here that Bichette seemed to be the one free agent that didn't fit them so well. That Tucker and Bellinger would both be better fits in terms of what they're looking for in terms of guys who can play the outfield the whole 9 yards. But with the way the contract has gone down with what they were able to come up with in the short term, I am really not mad at this deal. I mean, it goes without saying that they did not need another infielder. The news and rumors today from everybody is that Bichette's going to play third base. Not a great day to be TRADE Baty. I'll just say that. We're going to get into that. But just on the surface here, just surface level Bichette, I mean, I like it. This is a guy that hits for average. He hits for power. He's going to give you 20, 25 home runs a year. He is an extra base hitting machine. He's a contact hitter. I think one of the best hitters in baseball last year with runners in scoring position. I mean, we saw how clutch he was in the World Series alone, but he really did that all postseason long. Not afraid of that big stage, the bright lights. He was actually second in baseball last year in doubles and average. And I just love what he brings to the table as a hitter. I think all of a sudden, now you take a look at the Mets lineup in whatever way Carlos Mendoza decides to configure it, all of a sudden, a lineup of maybe they go 1, 2, 3 with it, and it's Lindor, Soto, Bo Bichette. That's a nightmare for any pitcher facing this team. So they needed a righty bat in the lineup, and they certainly needed protection for Soto, and they needed to replace, in some sense, the production that they lost with Pete Alonso. And I think that they did all three of those things with signing Bichette.
That's exactly what it comes down to, I think, from at least the hitting standpoint. When they got rid of Alonso, when they got rid of Nimmo, you were worried about that. It was pretty much the chief concern. They were able to figure it out. Now, in some way, it does, this move, I will say, confounds me. It confuses me a little bit. I have
Mhm.
questions because if you were, my dad pointed this out to me today, if you were gonna sign Bichette, a part of me feels like perhaps you shouldn't have let go of, I don't, maybe a guy like Nemo, probably could have held on to him in some sense, perhaps. I'm still a little bit confused with the way that things are going to play out in the outfield. So I guess let's sort of break this down piece by piece. What we know for sure, to Ashley's point, is that Bichette is going to be slotted in to play third base, which in and of itself is confusing because we kind of thought from last year that Brett Baty, in somewhat of a breakout season, had kind of secured his role as a third baseman. So
Bad
let's
day for
start
Brett.
with this one question. Where is Brett Baty going to play, or do you think he's going to get traded?
I mean, I think this move certainly, I'm not going to sit here and say I definitely think Brett Baty is going to get traded. I think that Baty and Vientos both now, in light of this, in light of them adding yet another infielder, are sort of on trade watch. Could you use one or
Mm.
both of those guys to get a pitcher now? Could you use one or both of them in a trade for Peralta, Alcantara, Scooble? Like, could you use those pieces to secure yourself a starting pitcher via trade? Definitely yes. In the same sense, I don't think that the Mets were lying at the winter meetings when they said that they're high on Brett Baty's bat and what he brings in terms of defensive versatility. I've said it all along, but I appear to be in the minority that I actually think Vientos' ceiling hitting wise is higher than Brett Baty's. So I don't really want to see them trade Vientos, but I understand where the fans come from that say Baty's better in terms of what he gives you and where he can play. I will say if they hold on to Baty, I mean, Brett might need to get ready to play some left field.
Well, funny you should bring that up because after I heard about this news, I decided to reach out to Mike Tricarico. And he is, for those of you who don't know, the broadcaster for the AAA Syracuse Mets. He has broadcasted many a game for this team, and I wanted to know what he thought and what he had seen with Brett Baty. I said, how would you feel about Baty in left field from what you've seen? He said he definitely has the arm for it, would need more reps, but knowing him, he's athletic enough to make it work where he's at least serviceable there defensively from time to time. And just out of curiosity, I said, what about first base? He said, hard to say without ever seeing him there. Footwork is very important, but he figured out the footwork of playing second base by working at it. He has quick reflexes, and the glove would need work, but still, he would need to get reps. But he's shown he can pick up new positions and learn them over time. He also added that second base was a struggle at first, but he got a lot better. So I think that was all kind of interesting insight coming from him. I definitely think that it's possible that you could see Baty playing in left field. If that's true to your point, at some point we're going to have to address the gluttony of infielders here. Like, what is, for instance, Mauricio's role at this point?
I
I
know.
mean, take Mauricio. I know you don't like this, but take Vientos and maybe one pitching prospect for Tarek Skubal. You wouldn't do that right now? I mean,
I mean, for Scooble, I would, of course. I think you look at a package that includes, the bats of Mauricio and Vientos, and all of a sudden that's really enticing. Not to even mention, Luis Angel Acuna has been tearing it up in winter ball, has started showcasing all kinds of power that we've never really seen before from him. So they obviously have a glut of infielders. We've been saying that before the Bichette move. They're gonna have to move, one or two of these guys, and hopefully in a way that makes sense for them in terms of getting a pitcher or maybe in terms of getting some sort of outfielder out there that they're comfortable with. I don't hate the idea of Brett Baty in left field. I don't love it. I mean, I did see a clip today from him when he was in AAA Syracuse. That he does have a good arm out there. He was like gunning down a runner at the plate. So I think he'd be serviceable, like Mike Tricarico said. We did watch him play a lot of second base down here in AAA, and I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't tantalized by what Brett brings at second base, but I think that's gonna be a role largely held down by Simeon. Um, I think where the question marks really come into play is, all right, if Bichette's gonna play third now, is first base Polanco, Vientos, does Baty slot in there at all? You have a lot of moving parts, but maybe they'll get rid of some of these guys via trade. Maybe they'll figure out some of it in free agency. I don't know. I think to be determined still for Brett, but I am intrigued by this move because as much as I joked at the beginning of the episode that Steve Cohen woke up pissed off this morning, I'm sure he did. But all of the rumors and everything out there, not even rumors, actually, reports, say that the Mets were actually in on Bo Bichette all along and it was just quiet. Pat Ragazzo said the Mets' plan all along was to get Bichette if they missed out on Kyle Tucker. Somebody else, Will Salmon, who's been very reputable this entire offseason and free agency cycle, put out an article today saying that the Mets talked to Bichette back at the winter meetings. They actually met with him earlier this week. His brother was coached by Carlos Mendoza, so there's a connection there. Like this Bo Bichette thing was actually in the works, and yes, it was obviously their pivot when they didn't get Kyle Tucker, but it wasn't like they called up Bichette for the first time last night at 9:45.
And I think that actually is important because it means that while some fans might be sitting here thinking that the Mets had no backup plan and that they were going to have to pivot immediately and start working on something that day once the Kyle Tucker thing fell through, turns out it wasn't like that all along. It turns out that the Mets were able to not only have this in the works, and by the way, I think also kind of steal him away from the Phillies, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that was the best part of this whole news. The best part of it. The Phillies, I think thought they had him. I saw something today. Let's see if I can find it
Had him
again.
in the first half.
Had him in the first half. No, truly. The Phillies thought that, yeah, Bob Nightingale said the Phillies had agreed to Bo Bichette's request for 7 years, $200 million last night and believed they would sign him until the Mets swooped in with 3 years, 126 after losing out on Kyle Tucker. Steve Cohen did wake up this morning and say, I don't care what it takes to get Bo Bichette, just get it done and don't let him go to Philadelphia. So sucks to be you if you're the Phillies, and obviously I take great joy in that.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't even think he slept last night. I think
Probably
last
not.
night, from the moment he sent out that tweet, it was a hard night for him. And he was gonna do anything he could to kind of fix things, fix the PR of the situation, and credit him for doing it so quickly. There was not a lot of time in between what felt like a nightmare last night to what kind of felt a little bit more like a dream come true today, right? So let's give
I've
him a
been
little bit of
saying
credit there.
I've been saying the optics have been bad, and I think that Steve Cohen might have had that exact thought last night and been like, we need to rectify this and we need to do it quickly. The one thing I will say is that I love obviously what Bichette brings to the lineup, but I've been asking David Stearns to pick a lane here all season long, and he hasn't really picked one because Bichette is not a very good defensive player. This whole narrative of like we're gonna try to get better on defense, other than Simeon, I don't really know what acquisition they've made that speaks to that. So. Again, that's not enough for me to say that I don't like it. It's fine, especially on what is essentially a 1 year deal because Bichette has opt outs after years 2 and 3, and I would be surprised if he didn't exercise those opt outs. I have to be in the interest of fairness. I have to say, paying Bo Bichette $40 million this year feels like a bit of an overpay as well. Honestly, do I think Bo Bichette's a $40 million player? Probably not, but the Mets did what they had to do to get him in here. He's going to be, I mean, this is his age 28 season, so he's squarely in his prime. I saw some people talking about today, now the Mets are on the hook for this deal, though. They obviously, he has the opt outs after years 2 and 3, but if Bo Bichette does not have a good season this year, or if there's a lockout next year, he might not opt out, in which case you are on the hook for multiple years of Bo Bichette. So I guess that's sort of just the risk you take with one of these shorter term opt out, high AAV contracts. But I don't hate that they did what it took to get it done, I guess.
I understand what you mean. Speaking of the defensive piece, there is one thing I did want to bring up, which is that of all the, pieces that we're discussing that you could use in a trade, in some sort of a deal here, I actually don't want to see Luis Angel Acuna go. I
Mm.
think that he, from a defensive standpoint, from a late inning standpoint, from a what he brings even from a culture standpoint, he's someone who I actually want to see remain with the Mets. And I think he's one of those kind of sleeper guys where he might end up being a little bit more important throughout the season than some people might think. I liked what he brought last year, and I like seeing the fact that he's getting hot. I always sort of felt like there was a little bit more to him than we were able to see. But from the limited time that we did see him in and playing and up with a major league club, I liked just about every damn thing I saw. Not to mention, he's a guy who really can play in a lot of places and is very athletic. And that makes me feel good considering the fact that some of these guys, there's really not quite as much flexibility. You mentioned it. Brett Baty at second base, hard no for me. I
Nope.
am way, way out on that. He is a good baseball player for sure, but there is something about his height and his lankiness. I like athletic probably isn't the first word that I'm using to describe him. You know what I mean by that? A little bit slower, has to probably work a little bit harder to become a better fielder. Whereas a guy like Acuna, you can throw him in just about anywhere, man. He's a good player.
Yeah, he's versatile. I mean, I think he brings a lot off of the bench. Do I necessarily see Acuna as an everyday, like, 300, like game player in that sense? I don't know if I see Acuna in an everyday role. But I think that what he brings to the team off the bench in late inning situations, defensively, pinch running, I do think he brings a lot of athleticism, and I agree with you in that realm. I can say that, for me, this Bichette stuff was very clearly, I had like Blue Jays fans sort of like, we saw some of you in our comments, and then also like reaching out to me today, kind of saying that Bichette is like a terrific clubhouse guy. He is such a competitor. Obviously, we saw that last year in the World Series. He was like hobbled, injured, still out there for his team. So in terms of what the Mets were trying to do culturally and clubhouse wise this offseason, I think this Bichette move really fits because he's very well liked around the league. And honestly, we've seen some rumors
Here we
against
go
Tucker.
again.
I
I'm
know,
in
here we go
local
again.
news. So
Here
sorry.
we go. We've seen some rumors actually against Kyle Tucker in that regard. So I don't know. I'm gonna stand by it. It is what it is. Um, I'm gonna stand by it. Missing out on Tucker sucks, but Bichette as the consolation prize isn't so bad. I know that the reaction from Dodgers fans, thank you so much for watching and supporting and allowing us to have another great episode last night. The reaction from Dodgers fans, I feel like on Kyle Tucker was it was a mixed bag last night. Some of you didn't really feel like the Dodgers needed him. Some did cite the clubhouse concern. Others were like, this is great, and he fortifies the outfield in the lineup in a way that we needed. So, um, long story short, I do
Okay.
think that the Mets and and Steve Cohen were smart to address this today and to make a move today that kind of eases fans' concerns. Listen, in the same vein, are the Mets done? I certainly hope not. There's still holes. They still have, as I've been saying, one and a half outfielders. Like they still need an outfielder or two, and they certainly need some starting pitching. But are they a better team with Bo Bichette? I think so. I mean, I saw something today that was remarkable. Career numbers with runners in scoring position. Bo Bichette is a 330 career hitter, and with runners in scoring position, and with runners in scoring position, two outs, 310. Obviously, Polanco and Simeon really good in those instances as well. So I think that they prioritize that this offseason too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, shout out to the fans of this podcast. Let's just start there. I
Yeah,
mean, considering I'm coming on here with a camera that is blurry half of the time, the
we're on
fact that
Zoom.
you
I'm in my
got
fake plant.
the fact that 32,000 of you watched this in less than 24 hours is really remarkable and is not where we thought we would be at this point in time. So thanks so much for that. Yeah, I mean, listen, end of the day, I think that Bo Bichette at the end of this season, at the end of 2026, I think you're going to look back and say, that was a good move. That's my overall takeaway. I feel like in baseball with these offseason moves, it was either a good move or it wasn't. And I think when all is said and done with Bo Bichette, you're going to think more positive came from it than negative. The one question then that remains, and that is still on my mind before we get out of here, is now back to your point from last night, got to see something happening on the pitching front. I mean, that
Have to
that really like all resources, all funding, all of your ideas have to go towards that now if you really
rally
want to be
rally the
competitive.
troops. Yeah. No, I totally agree. Hopefully, I sort of think that this was the first domino. Like, I think that the Mets now, whatever they want to do, considering it is January 16th and we got to get moving here, whatever they want to do now with the addition of that righty bat, they've got the Soto protection. Now they can do it. Whether it is a trade for a starting pitcher, whether it is a free agent, if it's Valdez, whoever it is. Hopefully they get that ball rolling. But yeah, I guess my overall takeaway is I'm pleasantly surprised by this move, pleasantly surprised by the shakeup it brings to the clubhouse. Worth noting that Simeon and Bichette were teammates in Toronto, and Bichette credited it back in like 2021, 2022, credited Simeon for like really taking him under his wing, helping him as he came up. So excited to see that little bromance flourish again in New York. Um, and I'm just excited for what it brings to the team. Yeah, I think it's a good move, and hopefully, I do agree with you. I think it's one that we'll look back on at the end of 2026, even if it turns out, to be a 1 year deal, and that's really what it is. I don't think it's a mistake in any way, shape, or form. Um, Also wanted to thank you guys for your support. Really great. We did see all the stuff on salary cap, salary floor. I think that's something we want to get into a little bit more on another off-season episode when some of this free agency stuff dies down because I think it's a really interesting topic. I mentioned the salary cap stuff yesterday, but I think that goes right along with the salary floor. So that was not me coming at any Dodgers fans saying that it's bad to have rich owners. We know it's not bad to have a rich owner. I think more so our conclusion was just like with all of these contracts, with Tucker and with Bichette, things need to be reined in here to some degree, right?
100%. One last thing since I have you here. Do you feel like it would still make sense at all for the Mets to go after Bellinger at this point or ditch that?
Well, the news and the rumors, at least tonight, is that they are still in the race for Bellinger, which I'm not mad at. Like I just said, you need another outfielder, and anytime you can fortify your lineup, I think that's a good plan, especially because when you do consider the lineup, okay, now Lindor, Soto, Bichette looks great, but you get deeper down in that lineup, and some of that depth is going to be young guys. It's going to be the Batys, Vientoses that you're relying on in key spots. So, do I think bringing in Bellinger is a bad idea if you get him on a deal that you like? Absolutely not. And I think that they still have some space to work with, right? I mean, the Bichette 40 millions definitely ups the payroll that they were looking at for next year, but I think they still have a little bit of wiggle room and I would be surprised if Steve Cohen's done. So, open to Bellinger on the Mets terms would be my answer to that.
Okay, it's not over until it's over, and there is still some off season left to go. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching the Why Am I Mets Fan podcast. Be sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. We are almost at 15,000 subscribers. That is all thanks to all of you. So thank you so much for being here, and we will see you back here when the next big thing happens.